Actually, got 20 seconds. Yeah, the Palmer's has to be here,
Well,
but
that's-
we did need to do
Move
that.
Stu out a little bit.
No, I have.
Otherwise, item on the agenda is a motion to appoint me as Mayor Pro Tem, is that correct?
I'll make a motion to appoint David Grumhaus, first ward Alderman.
I'll
as mayor
second.
pro tem.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item is call to order and roll call.
Honorable James Cowie, absent. Acting Mayor Grumhaus.
Here?
Alderman Novit.
Here.
Alderman Woodman, absent. Alderman Moore.
Here.
Alderman Morsch.
Here,
Alderman Schoenhyder, absent. Alderman Luby.
Here.
Alderman Palmer, absent.
Thank you very much. Will you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is reports of city officers, comments by mayor. I have one this evening, and that is a proclamation of April 29, 2011 as Arbor Day. Lake Forest, with its environment of natural areas, is particularly dedicated to the observance of Arbor Day. The concern for preservation of natural flora of Lake Forest is evident in the ordinances enacted by the City Council. Citizen groups and local institutions have actively supported preservation efforts and the renewal of natural areas through tree planting and landscaping projects. The city has been named Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation for 30 consecutive years. The mayor is proclaiming Friday, April 29, 2011 as Arbor Day, and will encourage all citizens to join in the celebration ceremonies, which will be held at 10 a.m. at Triangle Park, which is located between Deer Path Road and Walnut Road, just east of the public library. One bur oak tree will be planted in commemoration. There's not anyone here to accept the proclamation, but the day will be on April 29th. And that's all my comments for this evening. Bob, comments by city manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Acting Mayor, and members of the City Council. This evening, I'd like to introduce the Community Development Planning Intern, MALENA HESSEL, who is going to walk us through a PowerPoint presentation on the most recent census information and help us understand what's happening in Lake Forest, the numbers, and I believe in front of you is the material we received just in the mail on Friday about if the city was to decide if they wanted to challenge the counts, and we can have that conversation at the end of the presentation. So, MALENA?
Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you, Acting Mayor Grumhaus and members of the council. So as you know, I'm here to talk to you tonight about our preliminary observations from the 2010 census data. The census results indicate that the city of Lake Forest has lost population over the past 10 years. The population of the city has declined by about 3.4%. The results also indicate that the diversity of the city has increased slightly, and that the number of housing units increased over those 10 years. So I'll touch briefly on each of those points, going into just a little bit more detail. As of the 2010 census, the population of the United States is now 308.7 million people. The map on this screen shows population change by state over the past decade. Tan states are states that lost population, while blue states gained population. And the darker the blue, the more population gained. The state of Illinois grew by 3.3% over that period. However, it is actually likely going to lose a congressional seat because other states, those in the southeast and west, grew more than did Illinois. So next I'm going to zoom into Illinois. Well, this is a map of population change by county throughout the state. you can see that while the state grew, most of the counties actually lost population, with the exception being the area around Chicago and Cook County, where most counties gained in population. Zooming into that area, this is a map of population growth in the cities and villages in Cook County and its neighbors. So we can see a clear pattern in this map in that Chicago, its neighbors, and many of the older cities that have developed along the metro lines lost population in the past 10 years, whereas newer cities, cities further from Chicago, and unincorporated areas actually gained population. In the top right-hand corner of the screen, I've highlighted Lake County and Lake Forest. Lake County gained population, but the city of Lake Forest, along with many other North Shore communities, lost population over the past 10 years. So as I've said, Lake Forest's population declined, while the city and the state and the county grew. And I'm going to highlight a number of comparable cities to Lake Forest. You can see their population change over the past 10 years. From that, we can see that most of these cities did decline in population, and those that grew only very slightly, comparable to what we saw in Lake Forest. And the city of Chicago itself also declined in population over that time. So looking just at the population of Lake Forest, since the first census count was taken in 1860, the population has increased a lot. And although we declined over the past 10 years, this wasn't the first period of little to negative growth that the city has seen. I've highlighted 3 other periods of limited growth, and you can see that many of these decades, actually all of these decades, included periods of national economic decline like we've seen over the past couple of years here. Here's just a highlight of the population numbers over more recent decades. You can see the impact of the baby boom going from the 50s to the 70s, and consistent gains in population up to the last census. This is a breakdown of population by ward. As the city of Lake Forest declined in population, so did most of the wards, the exception being Ward 3. This is likely due to new development that went in.
Did you say leadership?
And new development that went into Ward 3 over the past 10 years. So Amberley Woods, Lake Forest Place, Regent Row, Stonebridge, all developments that went into that ward. We also know that some of the decline in Ward 2 is likely due to Barra College leaving that ward over the past decade. Now, some possible reasons for population loss include an aging population and smaller family sizes. Evidence of both these trends can be seen in school enrollment. For instance, Lake Forest Community High School District 115 had an enrollment decline of 1.4% over the past year, and the lower schools, School District 67, had a decline of 3.3%. Another possible reason may be housing vacancy. Also, some families in Lake Forest have multiple homes, so it's possible that these individuals put their primary residence as another location, as another city besides Lake Forest. And this might be another reason for population loss.
Yeah.
Moving on to diversity. The population of white non-Hispanic individuals in Lake Forest dropped by 5.7%, and the minority population increased by 25%. So this indicates that the diversity of the city did increase, but it increased slightly. The majority of the population, just over 90%, is still white, non-Hispanic, identifies as white, non-Hispanic. Housing. This is an overview of the number of housing units in the city of Lake Forest in recent decades. That number has seen consistent growth through the 2010 census. In the past decade, the number of housing units in the city have increased by 6.3%. I put up some key developments that have gone in since then. Amberley Woods, Lake Forest Place, Regents Row, Stonebridge. The build out of Conway Farms and Middle Fork Farm also impacted this, as did a variety of scattered site development throughout the city, and the build out of some subdivisions that were approved back in the 80s and 90s. So in summary, the population of Lake Forest has declined in the past decade. However, this decline is comparable to that seen by other North Shore communities and older cities throughout the region. The diversity of the city has increased slightly, and the number of housing units have grown. This does not represent the entirety of the census data that will be released. We expect data to continue coming out through April of 2012. We should get additional demographic data and housing data and statistics on the economic and social characteristics of Lake Forest's population. Before I move on to questions, we did want to put up some information from Finance Director Kathy Reinertson forecasting how population loss might translate into a revenue reduction for the city. I thought that might be of particular interest.
Kathy, did you want to mention anything about that? Do you want to highlight anything particular?
What I've shown are two comparisons. One compares the FY11 estimated actual using a population of 20,057, which is the current population, comparing it to the 19,375 population for FY12. Based upon just the change in population, we're looking at about a $78,000 loss in revenue. These, the income tax, the use tax, and the motor fuel tax are the three revenues that the city receives on a per capita basis. What we budgeted in FY12 was based upon our estimated population of 21.6 for the use and the motor fuel tax. However, for income tax, we did reduce our forecast by 10% in anticipation of any cuts from the state. So that is why, in that comparison, the reduction is only $1,000 as opposed to the 52 above it. But in either case, we're looking at somewhere between a $77,000 to $84,000 loss.
Am I right in saying the motor fuel tax goes into our road fund, right? We use every 3 years?
Yes, correct.
So it really won't show up in the 12 budget, right?
Well, the
I mean, it
revenue
will show up
comes
as-
in.
The revenue comes in, but we don't spend it in for 3 years, right?
Correct, correct.
We're also, I don't think at this point in time, clear exactly when the state will start using these numbers in their calculation. Is it in 12 that would be the first year?
What we had anticipated, again, the state has fallen behind on many things. We did anticipate the earliest would be May 1st.
Okay.
Haven't heard any updates on that. I'm assuming there probably will be delays.
These numbers still seem to me to be surprising, given the housing growth. I guess the one fact that was mentioned that would lend credence to them was that District 67, you said their school-age population was down 3.3%. So that's a significant number, and obviously a significant number of kids. The Barra, I'm still wondering whether on the college students, since we have so many of them, whether the census is used apples to apples between 2000 and 2010. Because the Barra numbers, I mean, I'm assuming most college-age kids are counted where they're from, not where they go to school. Is that correct?
You're supposed to respond to the census from where you live the majority of the year, over 6 months. So theoretically, a college student should identify as living in Lake Forest. However, in reality, they very well may say, oh, I'm from North Carolina.
And they get their own census form to fill out, a college student?
They send those because the communities like to get all those students counted.
I understand, okay.
Yeah.
One way that we can, I think, verify that, and Malena, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is we do have the data by census tract for 2010, and so we could look at where Barra falls into that census tract and see if there was any significant deviation within that specific tract.
Yes, I could do that.
How much of Barra was boarding? Was it, I mean, there was a fair amount of day commuter, wasn't there?
It was a fair amount of day, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have 300 to 500 students back then.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
were 500 there, didn't
I think the other thing that,
there? The other, yeah. The other amazing thing is, it's the third ward, we saw all those housing, and yet the third ward only showed a growth of 70 people, which would mean most of that housing is sitting empty or a big reduction somewhere along the line. So that didn't make a lot of sense either.
Smaller families.
right.
I mean, the multiple homes, I don't know whether we'll can get more detail on this when we get the additional census detail, but whether a lot of people have switched residency for tax reasons and other reasons. So they're still here, they're still here 6 months of the year like they used to be, but the residency is now in Florida, Arizona, as
Right.
opposed to being in Lake Forest.
Yeah.
Is it possible to find out how many Lake Forest college students said they lived in Lake Forest?
We can find that out. I don't know if we have the detail on the census tract yet for 2010, but once we get that, then we can
What,
certainly
1,400 students there?
compare it.
Or-
I think so.
We don't have the age breakdowns yet, but once we get the breakdown of population by age, it should be
Or address?
possible to give an estimate.
Well, it doesn't come by address. You'll just see it by census tract.
Okay, I haven't seen the census tract.
Yeah.
But if 500 students changed their mind or didn't fill out the census form, then
Right.
Is this something that can be challenged or appealed?
It can be. There is a fee associated with it. I think it's $5,000. Staff really wanted to present this evening, sort of get the council's sense as to whether you wanted us to come back with a recommendation once we follow through with a few of these other items, and to see if it's worthwhile. Obviously, there's concern about the loss of somewhere between $77,000 and $84,000 a year, because this is a year loss of revenue. The other thing we kicked around today was whether it was worthwhile to pay the money to do the appeal, or possibly wait in 2005 and we could do a special census. If some of the projects that we've been sort of sitting on, waiting on, hopefully they will take off, and
2015, you mean?
2015, sorry, yes.
I hope those projects are on their way in 2015.
Didn't we do one about halfway through this last period of time? At a second count.
Did we do it in 2005, or, I think we did one in 95.
Was it 95?
Yeah.
You've been on that long, Libby?
Yeah.
It's been around that long. No, you're right, though, we did do a special census, but I think it was in the 90s when we had a lot of growth activity.
Okay. I remember that one.
2015 would make sense too, just based on the recession, the freeze on the housing market, and maturing of the population. It's that timing, and 2015, hopefully, there'll be a little more movement of younger families coming in, so that
But-
makes sense.
Remember, though, it's all relative, though. Then you would be gauged against, I assume the state must have to do one to,
No, that's the nice thing about it, is that, because you have to pay to do the special census, and what we can do is just target certain areas of town if we wanted to just do certain tracks. You don't have to do the whole community. But then you do it, and those become your new numbers for state purposes, but they don't adjust everybody else's accordingly unless they've done their own special census.
I think there might be some low-hanging fruit with the college or some of the other areas that were mentioned. And, I mean, if we pick up 500 people, that could all happen at the college,
Right.
that's $300,000 between now and when we would count again in 2015.
Right.
And it just seems that before we spent the money to challenge it, maybe we just look in and see how viable some of these, we can look at the numbers, right? And
Well, we certainly right now have them by ward. I guess the one thing we'd have to look at is, the college would be in Ward 1, and in that case, it looks like it was only, 280 people, but that could be all college-related.
and they would be between 18 and 21, 22.
Yeah, I don't know, do we have the age breakdown yet?
We do not have the age breakdown yet, so we would have to wait for them to release that, and it's not clear exactly when that will be.
And that number may very well be less in total for the Ward 1 if we have it broken down by ward than the college students there. And I'm
Right.
just saying that 500 people makes a lot of difference in,
Oh, yeah.
in money.
Can you challenge, can you wait for the numbers to challenge, or do you have to challenge now? Is there a date by when you have to challenge by?
We have till 2013 to challenge.
Oh.
Oh,
A little time.
And if you challenge and win, do they look back, or just going forward? Do you know?
I think just going forward.
Just going forward.
Is there a way to correlate the number of people who have multiple residences, who've declared themselves to be residents of another state versus who end up paying tax in Illinois because Illinois will require you to prove that you've been there? I mean, the census is just elective. You're free to put down whatever you want to, but as far as Illinois tax, they do look at it, and then they require you to document the fact that you're not a citizen of Illinois.
Right.
Have we ever done that before?
We have not, and I guess the only thing we could do is anecdotally talk to some of these people. We all know who they are. We all have some friends who are in this boat, and find out what they did in terms of filling out the census material. But I don't think there's
Most of
any
them
way.
are pretty careful.
What's that?
Most of them are pretty careful.
Yeah, that's
They
what I'm
wouldn't want
thinking.
an inconsistent
Yeah.
census document.
6 months and a day.
Yeah, they track it very closely,
Yeah.
so. But again, I can't tell you if that's 100 people or 1,000 people that fall into that category. That's the hard thing of tracking that. And I think Kathy and I were also chatting just about vacant homes, is that while we know that there's a lot on the market, we don't have any way other than through some that we're closely tracking right now, how many are actually vacant and how many still have people living in them that are on the market. And so those are some of the other things. And then we don't have any numbers to benchmark against in 2000. So that's another issue that's out there we just don't have a good handle on. But I think the one that caused us some pause was when we saw the numbers from the school district in terms of the drop. Because when you take a look at just based on these numbers here, means the household size dropped from 2.86 in 2000 to 2.60 in 2010. So,
We don't think there's a lot of homeschooling going on?
yeah. Well, I think what's happened in a lot of cases, though, is it's with the recession, and it is, I think, ironic to take a look at historically the economic times and how it flattens out or goes down during recessionary periods. But I think you have a number of people whose kids have grown up and they would like to sell their house, but they're not in a position to do so right now,
And births are down at Lake Forest Hospital like quite a bit.
are they?
You know, I was a census taker in 1980 when I was in college. And my job was to get all the reports back from people who didn't file. And the reason I keep mentioning the college is I was in college at the time, and 90% of my work was at the college I was attending because none of the college kids did their census. And I didn't realize until tonight what an impact it had. So I think there might be a real
I think we can do our
Opportunity there.
research on both Barra and the impact of that as well as in Lake Forest College and see if.
Yeah, I meant Lake Forest College because there's a
Data.
chance to recoup.
Right. And then we can come back and provide you more background on it.
Didn't pay well either. But,
None of the homeowners associations would track sort of numbers or anything like that, would they?
Not that I'm aware of. We could ask. You might. We could certainly send a survey out to them. We have the contact names of the homeowners association.
Well, but you'd only want to do it if you had the 2,000 comparison. I'm just trying to think where you could get other large blocks. I mean, you know, if there was a Conway Farm Owners Association or Academy Woods or someplace that had a fair amount of, and you had some sort of count from 2000 to today,
Right.
it might be interesting to look at, because it's obviously a fair amount of people that left, although I think we will find, probably it's going to be the colleges and the, but I think we should continue to do some work and think about potentially still wanting to challenge it, so.
It's all those tax dodgers going to Florida.
I mean, you gotta think of all the baby boomers that are
Yeah,
getting to an age where they're moving out of the suburbs, they're moving into the city, they're moving to the south, they're moving somewhere.
But Chicago's population went down a lot, so
Right.
they're moving down to the city, it's not happening.
Are these numbers before or after Stu Widman left for Chicago?
all right. Any other comments?
Nope, that completes my report.
All right,
Malena's
next.
report.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is council committee reports. I'm doing double duty here. First is Finance Committee. And the first item is consideration of an ordinance approving a fee schedule for the city of Lake Forest. Thankfully, Kathy's here to spot me, and she's going to take us through this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. At the March 21st Finance Committee budget meeting, we discussed the increase to the water rates by 2.7%. It would increase the rate to $4.92 per 1,000 gallons for customers within the city and $6.75 for customers outside of the city. The 2.7% is based upon the consumer price index that was used in the latest tax levy. However, most customers' bills will actually rise by under 2% because water is only a portion of the bill. We also have the sewer charge and fixed charges. We just put up on the screen the survey that we have completed of surrounding communities, and Lake Forest will continue to be in the middle of surrounding communities.
Any questions on this? Take a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second?
This is grant first reading. My agenda says roll call, but I would think it'd be voice.
It'd be a voice vote, correct.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is award of contract for the purchase of software licensing, professional services, and minor hardware upgrades for server virtualization.
Thank you.
Review
Yes,
roll.
we also discussed this during the budget meeting. This is now the request to award the contract. The server virtualization will take, eventually, migrate all of our 43 servers down to 14 servers. It will also save us approximately $5,800 in maintenance and almost $16,000 in hardware costs. We should also be able to reduce power consumption by 30%. We did do a request for a proposal for this. We received 4. One was disqualified as it did not meet the criteria. We are recommending to go with Data Systems International for $52,067, along with a 5% contingency for any unforeseen obstacles.
The only question I have, and, we've been buying these over time, is it technology that's allowing us to shrink down in the number now that they're that much more efficient and can carry a bigger load?
Yes, we currently only have a small portion of our servers virtualized. This will take us on the road to virtualizing all of our
Everything.
servers. Everything.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this?
Just one, we're working with something similar right now with our office, actually with Karen Hanrahan. Her husband used to be on the council here.
Oh, okay.
And the part that's in the proposal here, are there other elements of this that other companies might be involved with where your IT department would be caught between two people pointing fingers at each other? Is there another element to this? Are you upgrading any routers or switches, or is this just a migration to virtualization?
This is just a migration to virtualization. Am I correct, Joe? Yes.
Okay.
No other companies involved.
Okay. She uses a phrase, make sure you have one throat to choke when you
Oh.
make these kind of moves. And I think we've all been the ping pong ball on these things. I would hate to
I understand.
Part of it, and then step into the expensive part later.
I'd like to make the motion to accept the contract to Data System International for the amount of $52,067.
Sec,
Okay.
your turn.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Acting Mayor Grumhaus.
Aye.
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Morsch.
Aye.
Alderman Luby.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer.
Aye.
6 yeas, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you, Kathy. And that's it for the Finance Committee. Next, Housing Trust, Alderman Morsch.
No report,
Laurel and Western Avenue.
and no report as well.
Alderman Palmer, Legal Committee.
No report.
Alderman Luby, Public Works Committee.
Public Works would like to remind everybody that we'll have a special Public Works Committee meeting for the South Road down to the beach at 5:15 Wednesday evening at the Gorton Community Center. And we'll be dealing with Public Works and salt a little later.
Senior Resources Commission, Alderman Novit.
And no real report. Next meeting would be a week from today on April 11th at 8 in the morning.
Transportation Safety Enhancement Committee. Bob, anything on that? Obviously,
No, they
Mayor's
didn't
not
have
there.
a meeting this month, so
Okay.
no report.
Next item, comments by council members.
Just brief comment, to remind everyone, the First Ward meeting is this Thursday at Gorton Center at 7 o'clock. And I think that's going to be David's last opportunity to be part of one of the ward meetings. So I hope we'll get good attendance that day.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Moving on, opportunity for the public to address the city council on non-agenda items. See no one. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have, 5 items on the consent agenda this evening. First is approval of authorized invoices and payrolls. Second is authorization of treasurer's warrants to meet expenses of April 2011. Third is approval of a resolution reallocating 2011 volume cap to the village of Buffalo Grove. Fourth is approval of contract to purchase rock salt for the winter of 2011 and 12. And fifth is approval of the council minutes. We should probably pull the rock salt off. Any other items that people want to take off the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the 4 items on the consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Acting Mayor Grumhaus.
Aye.
Alderman Novit.
Just so I can make sure, are we pulling the salt?
We're pulling this off. We're going to come back to
So it would be
next.
only
We're
the
discussing.
3 items.
No, there were 5.
5 items.
Item, okay. Then, aye.
Net 4.
Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Morsch.
Aye.
Alderman Luby.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer.
Aye.
6 yeas, no nays, motion carries.
Thanks. Okay, back to the rock salt. Ken Leone, I believe, is here to walk us through this.
Good evening, Acting Mayor and members of the City Council. This year, for the second year in a row, we joined Highland Park, Deerfield, and Lake Bluff in our own salt bid, bypassed the state program. And we had 2 options, the 80% 120% option and the 100% 120 option. I think you've heard this in the past years. The 80-120 meant we set a base amount. We'd have to buy a minimum of 80% of that base. We could buy up to 20% or up to 120% of our amount at the 120 number. The 100-120 option is a narrower range, gave us a better price. We'd have to buy the base amount, but we could increase it by 20% if we wished. So in our separate bid, we came up with pricing of $65.64 per ton, a little bit higher than we had paid in the winter just ended. We'd been paying $63.60 per ton. And this is a little bit less than we budgeted. We budgeted a 5% increase, so we had anticipated spending a little more on salt for the year. The anticipated price was $66.78 per ton. The day of the bid was March 17th, and that day Alderman Grumhaus and staff exchanged a series of emails, and we talked back and forth of the options, the opportunities, the questions. Should we participate in the state? We still had the option at that point of going into the state bid. The deadline for participating was the 18th, the following day. Once you join the state bid, though, you're committed to participate no matter what the result. You can't just join in to see what the price is and compare it to your own bid. You're either in or you're out. And we opted, with Alderman Grumhaus's advice, to take the bid results of our smaller bid with a known quantity, given that fuel prices are rising. The state bid hasn't happened yet, and results won't be out till probably summertime. We don't know exactly where those numbers will be. We could come up with a better number had we participated with the state. We could have
What
come
was
up
the
with
state number last year?
The state number varied by community, and we, of course, in Lake Forest, did not participate, so we have no idea what they would have charged us had we participated. And that's the system is unlike the state bid price on a vehicle where we piggyback on IDOT or the toll authority. The bid prices are there, we know the prices. Every community gets a separate price in the salt bid, and we don't know our number unless we're actually in the process and committed to accepting that price. So we have
What's
no
that
number.
based on volume? For the communities, that everybody would get a separate
And
price?
transportation costs.
Well, the
the
vendor
trucking and
sets the price based upon their cost of the commodity and their shipping
And their
estimates to
shipping
the
charge.
different locations.
But I would also say that there's a lot of gray in here because Matawa, right next door, has gotten a much better price than, say, Lake Bluff immediately to our north. And there's no rhyme, no reason to why the two are different, because the salt's still coming from the same place.
One of the things that we found 2 years ago when there was the big upset with those bids is that there was no apparent justification for some of the variances between communities. Communities immediately adjacent to each other had variances, as I remember, as much as 80%. So it was very much a go figure kind of analysis, and it was left to the bidder, not to the state bidding process. They just asked for the number, and the bidder came in with wide-ranging numbers.
Now, we did look at, though, I think we had Meadowa and one other bid nearby for their state bid last year, right?
I believe we looked at Lincolnshire.
Lincolnshire.
Had the same price we had 2 years ago at $64 per ton. They participated in the state process last year. They came in at $66 per ton, so we beat them by 40 cents by bidding on our own for the winter just passed. So there was a comparable. We don't know, of course, what they will get for the coming winter.
Is it more difficult to buy, was it 2,500 tons than it would be 100 tons? I know landscapers that pay $20 to $25 a ton. They've stored it on my property, and
We've not heard that price.
I
I mean, I'm wondering.
It's a 5 or 8 year old price.
No, this is last year. I still
Half
have
of
a
it's
pile
got
of them.
salt, sand and dirt in it.
No
Is
one
there
has
low
offered us-
quality salt? Is there what could? I mean,
No
I'll
one has
dig.
offered us a price anywhere near that for years. So I
Years.
have no idea what that would be.
Okay, that doesn't make sense, does it?
It does not.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, with the bid, there were 4 cities involved in the bid, and Lake Bluff dropped out. What happened to Lake Bluff?
Don't know. There was no direct response from Lake Bluff. Our contact is retired from Lake Bluff. I don't know.
Okay, so they could be going for the state bid, or,
They probably will, yes, but we don't know for sure what their reasoning was.
okay. Thanks.
I mean, when we talked about this, we just, I don't think any of us felt, I'll speak for myself, super strongly about what was the right way to go here, but we just felt like that, with the state, we may do a couple dollars better if we wait for the state bid. On the other hand, we weren't gonna know for 4 months, and to take the bird in the hand, especially with this seemingly random,
Fuel price.
fuel price being one thing, but just
yeah.
sort of this random that one community gets one price and another community gets another price. And then if they decided to pick on Lake Forest for being a wealthier community and, whatever the reason, and, plus you have the whole state credit issues and all the other stuff. So we just sort of felt like it was better to continue with our own. This was, seemed like a reasonable bid. We got, 4 very good bids from very reputable, big salt companies, so.
This will fill the Grumhaus salt bin.
It certainly will.
To the
Pretty
top.
darn close.
Oh, and barring any more salt, how much do we have left over at this point?
This memo says 811, but the last storm we put out about 55, so we're around 750, 755 left. We'll go into the next winter with that in storage and a maximum of 3,000 under the new contract, so we'll have 3,750, which is about what we used this last winter.
Okay.
Good. Did a nice job this winter. Well done.
Okay, can I make a motion to approve the contract?
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Acting Mayor Grumhaus.
Aye.
Alderman Novak.
Aye.
Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Morsch.
Aye.
Alderman Luby.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer.
Aye.
6 yeas, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. Nothing under ordinances or new business. Any additional items for council discussion?
Motion
Mr. Acting
to,
Mayor, I know you're anxious to get out of here and go home and watch the game. I just wanted to verify, though, we sent out a memo in the packets regarding the administrative hearing program.
Yes.
Just, I know the chief is here in case anybody has any questions. Looks like the program's operating very well. We're very pleased. So, if you have any questions, you can see him after the meeting.
just a comment, I think it's been really successful financially, and the word from the residents is they're very happy to come here, and I haven't heard complaints that, you know, they don't think it's unfair or anything. It's a lot more convenient, and it's working. It's a good program, so.
You pick, here or here. Here or here.
That's right,
You pick. What do you think?
right here.
Good job, chief.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Council meeting's adjourned.